I wanted to get you ready for homework 6. And that requires going over some of the material that I've presented already in the lecture notes. But I realized I haven't done a cohesive treatment of it, mainly because I wanted to get you ready for exam 2. But now that we're in the final stages, I want you to go back and look at lecture 15. And if you go to lecture 15, you'll see that after introducing the dictionary, I have a brief section here talking about CSV module. CSV stands for comma separated values. These files are used everywhere to store information. Where you have rows, each row contains a set of values that are separated by commas. And this is something you would use, for example, to easily bring information in and out of Excel. And in this particular problem that I've posed here, what if you want to try to figure out the correlation between statistics about crimes and the real estate values or real estate transactions? And I found some data sets from Sacramento which reveal interesting correlations and would be useful for further exploration if only you could write a program to do that. And that's what I will be showing you over the next couple lectures. The lectures have reading that I want you to do, but I thought it would be useful to have a narrative as we're going through it. So I'm going to show you how I start. The first step is to download these files and put them in the same directory where you are going to do a sample code. I have that all set up over here right now in my prep for homework 6 Python file. Now, these particular files that you would see here contain a lot of interesting information. So this one is Sacramento, contains a bunch of real estate. These are the crime ones that describe for a particular address what was the actual event that occurred, and they're each tagged with a GPS coordinate. This is a great feature because now with modern mobile devices, GPS coordinates are used everywhere as mashup applications to find local restaurants, to find traffic patterns, and so on. Here I'm going to use this to try to correlate crime statistics with the other file I gave you, which is the real estate transactions. Also has longitude and latitude on it. How do I get all this information into a program? Well, you already know how to load information from a file, and so presumably you would say, I'll just kind of do the same thing. But it's a little complicated, and while I could show you how to do that from scratch, it's a lot easier if I show you the CSV module, which is already there in Python that you can take advantage of. You know you have the CSV file, that is the module capabilities, if you say import CSV. If this doesn't work for you, then get in touch with me. You got to find a way to get that module. But it should be there in your standard Python installation. Now what I want to do is show you how to use a CSV file to load up information. And in the lecture notes from this day, I present some information that describes it. I'm just going to copy this file over here because this one here actually has everything that I need. So let's bring it in here to Python. And what I have is a function called extract all records that processes the CSV file and returns a single data structure, which I call a list of lists or a list of records. Now, to fully explain how that works, I need to show it to you. And first, I thought I'd describe the list of lists in advance. We've seen a number of data types so far: integers, floating point numbers, booleans, lists, and strings. But what if you want something with a little more structure to them? Well, if I start with an idea that I've got a collection, and what if I'm trying to store information where it's not just single values, they're each a little more complicated. So I've talked about this before, where you could have a list of values. They could all be of different types, but let's just say they're all strings for now. What if I've got a book 1, and this book has, in this case, an ISBN number, which I'm not going to really worry about what it does, and this algorithm in a nutshell. This is the book that I wrote a few years back. This is one of my books. If I have another book, which is another book that I wrote a while back, which is Sudoku on the half shell. If you like Sudoku puzzles, by all means, pick it up. Now, I've got these two books, and I want to have them in my collection. So if I append book 1 to my collection, well, my collection now looks like it has a book. Now, it's a little more complicated because you would first see, well, what are those two brackets all about? Well, the value contained in this collection is itself a structure of two elements. And this becomes evident when I add my next book. I'm going to append book 2 to my collection. And now my collection has 2 books. The first one is this entry, the next one is this entry. I call this structure a list of lists, or a list of records. It's highly stylized and symmetric, where every row has the same number of columns, and all the first columns are the ISBN numbers, all the second columns are the titles, and so on. Now, doing it this way manually is certainly a lot of work, especially if you have to load up all this information. So instead, I'm going to show you how to use a CSV module provided by Python to get all that information in for you. It's quite simple. I'm going to start with this idea that I have a file on disk that I want to load up. You've seen this before. To actually load it up, as you've seen in some of my videos, I want to make sure I set my working directory to be where the editor is located. So I'm going to make sure I'm in the proper location. Once I have that done, my code here is going to open up that file passed in by name in read mode, and I'm going to build up a collection of rows that I'm going to return. To do that, all I have to do is have a CSV reader, which will do all the heavy lifting for you. And that's what makes programming languages so useful, is that you have all these libraries that do things for you that you don't have to do for yourself. And basically what I do is I get every row from that reader one at a time, and I add it to my results. This is very similar to what I just did right now. Here I started with a collection that was empty. I have 2 rows, book 1 and book 2. Each one gets appended to my collection, and then I've got a collection of 2 books, or 2 rows if you want to look at it that way. Here, this extract all records. Let me run this one. And let's call this one set1 to be extract all records. And I need to pass in a string. And the string that I'm going to pass in is the name of this file, which is Sacramento Real Estate Transaction CSV. Boy, that's annoying, but we'll just have to do it. Sacramento Real Estate Transactions. If I make any typos, I'll go back and fix it. CSV. Looks good. Sacramento Real Estate Transaction CSV. And that's my set 1. It has 986 elements. And as a list, you know you can access any individual element one at a time. What's the first entry? It's going to be the entries in each of the column. The fact that it starts with the street, city, zip code, state, all the way down. And the first real estate entry is set 1, which is, set 1. The first one, this is a house on High Street, and it sold for $59,000. Was it $95,000? No, that's a zip code. It only sold for $59,000, and here's its GPS coordinates. Now, with all this information, I can do a number of processing on it. So I just wanted to quickly start with a simple video to get you started, which is how to understand the concept of a list of lists. Please look at my lecture notes. How to use the CSV module, which Python provides for you, to load up the values that are contained in a file so you don't have to type it in yourself. And once you have those values, how do you process them? We'll talk about that in the next video.